get ready for the race.
MkII is on his practice out lap.
Dangerous Dan just posted a 1:35.958 crossing start finish. Dangerous Dan posted 2:55.407 on his last lap, and will be pushing hard for an even lower time.
The time clock can be a cruel mistress that is all too willing to show you your faults.
It's a lovely day for racing here at Imola 1972 as we watch these drivers warm up and get ready for the race.
MkII is on his practice out lap.
MkII is in Tamburello. Dangerous Dan has a best lap time of 1:35.958.
With just 0 minutes left before we move to qualification, there is not long left for these drivers to finish their preparations.
Dangerous Dan is not giving up and will be looking for every 10th.
MkII is getting to grips with the ASRL T70 MkII Spyder in this practice session. MkII is on his first practice flying lap.
It's a lovely day for racing here at Imola 1972 as we watch these drivers warm up and get ready for the race. The anticipation is high as the drivers line up for the qualifying session at Imola 1972.
It looks like David Zahn is getting ready to make his move. He's taking his time to warm up those tires and get everything just right.
David Zahn completes that lap in his ASRL T70 MkII Spyder, putting him in P24.
This is the moment he's been preparing for. Let's see if he can execute.
You can feel the tension building. Malero is out on track and getting ready to push for his qualifying time.
These are the moments that really matter. Let's see if Malero can deliver.
Malero appears focused and prepared driving through Tosa.
It's all about strategy in these early moments. Dangerous Dan is taking his time to prepare for his qualifying run and get everything just right.
He'll want to get a good gap established for the flying lap.
That ASRL T70 MkII Spyder looks good driving through Castellaccio.
If Dangerous Dan listens closely, the sounds of cheering fans should just barely be audible over the roar of the engine.
Dangerous Dan is keeping his head down through Ravazza.
Fans sitting near Ravazza get some of the best views of the action.
This is where the mental game comes into play. Malero is taking his time to prepare for his qualifying run. Malero has completed his outlap.
Malero is working his way through Tamburello.
David Zahn is on his outlap.
It's a delicate balance between taking it easy and pushing hard. Let's see how Zahn handles it.
David Zahn is looking relatively composed going through Piratella. David Zahn is expertly commanding that car through Ravazza.
It looks like Malero is getting ready to make his move. He's taking his time to warm up those tires and get everything just right. Kevin Lekmansky will be looking to use this first hot lap to set a solid time in the standings.
As Kevin Lekmansky completes the outlap, he will be hoping there's enough space on track to fully attack on the flying lap. Kevin Lekmansky is driving through Tosa. Kevin Lekmansky is keeping his head down through Castellaccio.
This track has many great straights and corners, but this one is especially good.
Kevin Lekmansky has improved by 0.42 up through Ravazza. Kevin Lekmansky just clocked a 133.917, 0.983 off of P1 and good enough for P2. Let's see if he can improve on that time further.
The pressure is on in this qualifying session, but Dangerous Dan is rising to the occasion.
Dangerous Dan is currently up 3.74 going through Ravazza. Dangerous Dan has completed that flying lap in 144.235, which is good enough for P4, down 11.301 to the leader. Malero is in the green by 0.1.
Kevin Lekmansky will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. He is surely working on that 0.453 gap to pole.
Dangerous Dan has found an extra 8.09. That ASRL T70 MkII Spyder looks good driving through Ravazza.
There's a great spot near here to kick back with a cold drink and enjoy the beauty of it all.
Dangerous Dan will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session. David Zahn is looking relatively composed going through Ravazza. David Zahn is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 1:32.757.
It may be difficult for him to improve on that. Sometimes trying too hard makes you slower. It's far better to drive smooth and smart.
David Zahn appears focused and prepared driving through Tosa.
Fuel, fumes, fans, and fights. Tosa has it all.
You can feel the tension building. Gregory Myers is out on track and getting ready to push for his qualifying time.
It's all about finding that balance between staying calm and focused, while also pushing the limits.
Malero is driving through Piratella and is up 0.13.
All we can do now is wish Malero luck as the start-finish line approaches.
Malero is in the green by 0.8, making his way through Ravazza.
This is where drivers have to decide to push for more or just try to maintain it.
Malero is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 1:32.601.
There are just over 5 minutes left in this qualification session. Kevin Lekmansky will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session.
Gregory Myers is on his first flying lap.
It's always impressive to see a driver in the zone like this Hal. Let's see if he can maintain this pace.
Gregory Myers is 0.77 up driving through Castellaccio. Gregory Myers is expertly commanding that car through Ravazza. Gregory Myers has just completed that lap in 1:36.871, which is 4.27 off the best time, putting him in P5. Gregory Myers is working his way through Tosa.
This is such a great track. I need to make it back here more often.
Stefano Amadei is now up 0.66 in Castellaccio.
If Stefano gets greedy, this delta could go from green to red in the blink of an eye.
Stefano Amadei has improved by 1.26 up through Ravazza. Stefano Amadei will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session. Kevin Lakmansky has found an extra 0.85. Kevin Lakmansky is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 1:32.277.
That's a great time, but it's always a good idea to keeping pushing for every last tenth and hundredth.
Kevin Lakmansky is down 0.3 seconds on the way through Tosa.
And there goes David Zahn, currently in P3. He's shown great skill and consistency so far, but with a few minutes left, there's still a chance to improve on that time.
David Zahn is driving through Castellaccio.
The ASRL T70 MkII Spyder is indeed a sweet-ass looking ride.
David Zahn is keeping his head down through Ravazza.
I have always loved this section of the track.
A solid performance from Jake Feemster, currently holding down P5. However, with the session coming to a close, he'll need to find that extra bit of speed to move up the grid. Jake Feemster is currently up 0.17 going through Pirotella.
The rest of this lap is no cakewalk. Let's hope he can keep it up.
Jake Feemster appears focused and prepared driving through Ravazza.
Jake Feemster will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session.
Jake Feemster is expertly commanding that car through Tamburello.
Spectators near here can smell the smoke wafting from nearby grills.
Incredible drive by Crow so far, earning him 8th. The competition is fierce, however, and he'll need to quickly find more time to get even closer to the sharp end of the grid. That's the outlap done for Crow. He'll now look to focus on his first flying lap.
You hit the nail on the head, Hal. Crow's current position of 8th is a testament to his skill and determination. Now, he must stay sharp to make the most of this opportunity.
It's a very still day here at Imola 1972, as we're getting ready to kick things off.
The tension's building now. This is going to be another great race.
Starting from pole position is the best possible outcome for Kevin MkII.
He will need to stay cool under pressure. If he can do that, he'll be in with a chance.
Starting on the front row is a great opportunity for MkII to challenge for the lead.
He can't let that advantage go to waste. He will need to stay focused and keep his eyes on the prize.
It's David Zahn, sitting comfortably in third.
Zahn is in a good place to mount a good challenge come the first corner.
Lining up in 5th is Stefano Amadei.
Amadei is hoping for a strong result.
The 6th position belongs to Dangerous Dan.
He's going to have to be quick out of the blocks to keep up with the top performers.
Starting from the 7th position, Gregory Myers will need to navigate through the field to challenge for the win.
That ASRL T70 MkII Spyder looks like it has some potential.
Lining up in 8th is Crow.
Crow is going to show us something special, I'm sure of it.
The race is on, and tensions are high as drivers navigate the first lap. One wrong move could lead to a collision in these tight quarters.
The opening lap is often a hotbed of potential problems. The ability to steer clear of any mishaps will set the stage for a successful race.
The racing is normally closely fought here at Imola 1972. I think we are in for a cracking race.
As the tires come up to temp, their available grip is changing, and the drivers that manage this transition best are likely to make progress through the field. There's some intense battling throughout the field as everyone is feeling out the drivers around them. The pressure is on when the field is this tightly packed. Maintaining just enough aggression to hold off their rivals without pushing too hard will help these drivers keep it clean.
I'm looking forward to this one, Hal. Maybe we'll see a return to form for Stefano in this outing in Italy.
Is there a better sight than a field of elite racing drivers battling for position?
There are a few drivers with a point to prove, and a few with some grudges to bear. Let's hope they can keep it clean.
The stewards will be hoping that there aren't too many incidents for them to pick over when the dust settles on this one. Every lap is an opportunity for David Zahn to learn just a little bit more to shave a few tenths or hundredths off his times.
The drivers are jockeying for position. David Zahn will be looking to get off to a good start and consolidate his position.
What a beautiful day for racing here at Imola 1972. This is going to be good to watch.
Dangerous Dan is trying his best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Crow at the moment.
This is where the mental toughness of Dangerous Dan comes into play. He'll need to stay focused and keep pushing, even when things aren't going his way.
It's neck and neck, the closest battle we've seen in a while.
It's going to be a close one. MkII will have to push hard to create an opportunity.
Every move counts now as Stefano Amadei works to reel in Jake Feemster and overtake for P4.
Stefano is really pushing the limits. He's riding the curbs and hustling that ASRL T70 MkII Spyder like a boss.
The pressure is on as Jake Feemster tries to catch up to David Zahn.
Malero is running second, and trying to catch Kevin Leknansky.
Sometimes you have to take risks to win, but pushing the car too hard can be a costly mistake. MkII needs to be careful not to overdo it.
Things are heating up as Jake Feemster tries to close the gap to David Zahn.
The gap between them is just over 0.3 seconds. Can Feemster close that gap and get back in range? I can't see it happening at this point.
We got a close battle as Kevin Leknansky closes in on Malero.
This battle between Leknansky and Malero is so intense, you could cut the tension with a knife, or should I say, with a front wing.
Oh my, Jake Feemster is hot on the tail of David Zahn as they drive through start-finish.
Should things go awry, Jake and Zahn might find themselves giving a whole new meaning to the term tandem drifting, though I doubt they'd enjoy it as much as the spectators.
The fans are on the edge of their seats. It doesn't get any closer than this.
As a former driver, I can tell you there's nothing quite like the adrenaline rush when you're this close to your rival, ready to make your move.
The battle for P3 is heating up as Jake Feemster tries to catch David Zahn in P3.
Oh, this is getting intense. MkII is just a few car lengths behind Kevin Leknansky.
One important aspect here is choosing the right braking points. MkII needs to be precise to avoid overshooting and losing valuable time.
Jake Feemster is looking for an opportunity to get around David Zahn.
It looks like Feemster has the speed to make a move. I just hope he can do it cleanly.
MkII is giving it his all, chasing down Kevin Leknansky in P1.
Malero is looking to close the 0.3 second gap and make a pass.
It's a close race between Jake Feemster and David Zahn in third.
Feemster is so close to Zahn that if this were a dance floor, they'd be doing the tango.
This is a thrilling battle as MkII edges closer to Kevin Leknansky in their fight for P1.
It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Malero needs to stay patient and wait for Leknansky to make a mistake.
No room for error here. David Zahn is breathing down the neck of Jake Feemster, waiting for the perfect chance to make his move. A great pass for David Zahn, swapping places with Jake Feemster to move up the field. Hold the phone. Oh dear, David Zahn has dropped down to fourth. I love being here at Imola 1972. What an awesome place to be witnessing these titans of the track battle it out. Hold that thought. Looks like that's a mistake from Kevin Leknansky. This could be costly.
Indeed, Hal, what a magnificent sight and sound. I love listening to the roar of these engines. Let's just listen for a moment.
Crow is having to make that ASRL T70 MkII Spyder as wide as possible to try and keep Kevin Leknansky behind him.
Looks like Kevin Leknansky is really hitting those curbs aggressively, which can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer.
The pressure is really on for Jake Feemster in second as Malero is closing in. This is where experience and skill really count. Impressive driving from Jake Feemster, who has managed to extend his lead over Malero. It looks like Malero will have to regroup and try to make up that lost ground.
That's a really strong performance from Feemster. He's not giving Malero any chances to catch up.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Stefano Amadei is chasing Malero in P2.
Kevin Lekmansky is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. Look at that, Malero is hot on the tail of Jake Feemster.
It looks like Malero is making a move. The gap to Jake Feemster is now down to 0.1 seconds.
It's a brilliant day for racing, and the drivers are putting on a show.
Absolutely. What a great race we are witnessing today. These drivers are giving it their all, and it's a thrill to watch them compete at this level.
They're really pushing themselves and their machines to the limit, and it's paying off with some incredible driving.
It's a pleasure to be here today, Hal. You really can't beat the excitement of a good race, especially one as competitive as this.
The pursuit is on. David Zahn is working on that gap to Stefano Amadei, determined to claim P3.
Zahn is really hustling that ASRL T70 MkII Spyder. He's riding the curbs and pushing the car to its limits.
This is where the race gets really interesting. Kevin Lekmansky is closing in on Crow.
It's a game of strategy now as Lekmansky hunts down Crow.
Yes, it's all about choosing the right moments to push and when to conserve energy, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed.
Rising to the occasion and claiming victory would help to cement David Zahn's legendary status. The action is non-stop as Jake Feemster shadows Malero through every twist and turn, determined to claim first. David Zahn wants to find a way round Stefano Amadei. Braking alert. Superb driving from David Zahn, who with that overtake has gained a position in the race.
And David is poised to capitalize on any mistake. It's just a matter of who cracks first.
A setback for David Zahn, who has just been passed.
Yes, but he can't give up. There's still plenty of time left in this race, and Zahn needs to stay focused and keep pushing.
Even though Stefano Amadei is a fair way behind David Zahn, he can't afford to let his guard down. David Zahn is still vulnerable to mistakes.
You're spot on, and Stefano knows that he can't rely on Dave making an error. He will need to drive with skill and determination, and be ready to seize any opportunity that arises.
This is getting exciting. Crow is looking for any gap that might open up the position.
Stefano is doing a great job of defending in the lead, and Crow is pushing hard to close the gap. It's an exciting race and it's not over yet.
The race is really heating up. Crow is hunting down Stefano Amadei with everything he's got.
These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving.
Braking alert. A brilliant maneuver from Kevin Lekmansky, who has just moved up the field.
Kevin needs to focus to have a chance at getting past Crow.
Crow is running sixth, and trying to catch Kevin Lekmansky.
It's a fine line between pushing the car to its limits and losing control. Crow is really walking that fine line.
It's a game of inches now as Malero tails Jake Feemster closely, ready to capitalize on any mistake.
As an experienced driver, I can tell you that Malero must be laser focused on Jake's every move, looking for the slightest weakness to exploit.
Stefano Amadei wants to close that gap with Kevin Lekmansky.
If Stefano gets too close, he might end up taking the paint off.
This is what racing is all about. Two fierce competitors pushing each other to the limit.
These two are putting on a masterclass in precision driving. Every turn, every acceleration, calculated to perfection.
These drivers are battling hard for this position, each one trying to outsmart and outmaneuver the other.
It's not looking good for Malero, who is still behind Jake Feemster and the gap is increasing. Hold up, breaking info. That won't be ideal for Jake Feemster. Things are heating up as Crow tries to close the gap to Stefano Amadei. The gap between Crow and Stefano Amadei is getting smaller. Oh, this is getting intense. Jake Feemster is just a few car lengths behind Kevin Lekmansky.
The gap between them is now just over 0.4 seconds.
This is what it's all about, folks. Stefano Amadei is in hot pursuit of Crow, who's just trying to stay ahead. It seems like Stefano Amadei is struggling. His last lap time was a bit off the pace of Crow. Crow is placed 5th at the moment, and hoping to keep his distance ahead of Stefano Amadei, who is 0.3 seconds behind. Stefano Amadei is on a mission, chasing Crow, who's desperately trying to stay ahead. It's not going to plan for Stefano Amadei, who is trailing behind Crow and the gap is widening. He may not have an answer for this right now.
This is a frustrating situation for Stefano, but he can't give up just yet. He'll need to keep pushing and hope for a mistake from Crow.
Every move counts now as Jake Feimster works to reel in Kevin Lachmanski and overtake for P3.
This is not going to be an easy pass to make.
The battle for P4 is heating up as Crow tries to catch Jake Feimster in P4. Hold the phone. Big gains for Crow as they move up the field, leaving Jake Feimster behind.
Absolutely, Hal, but there's still a long way to go in this race, and Crow can't afford to get complacent. With just 0.4 seconds between them, Crow will need to close the gap to have hopes of a pass.
The gap between Kevin Lachmanski and Crow may be wide, but that doesn't mean Kevin Lachmanski is safe. He's got to maintain concentration and avoid any lapses in performance.
That's right, and Crow knows to keep pushing hard and driving his own race. He can't let Lachmanski off the hook.
He's pulling away. Kevin Lachmanski is increasing the gap to Crow. Oh, this is getting intense. Gregory Myers needs to keep Dangerous Dan in his sights. Gregory Myers has just put in a faster lap than Dangerous Dan, so that's going to give him something to worry about.
The pursuit is on. Kevin Lachmanski is closing the gap on David Zahn, determined to claim P2.
The mental game is just as important here. Lachmanski must keep his cool while putting pressure on Zahn.
It's certainly not going to plan for Kevin Lachmanski right now, who is struggling to keep up with David Zahn.
Well, it doesn't look like Gregory Myers is going to be much of a threat to anyone soon, let alone Dangerous Dan. It looks like we might get a battle between Gregory Myers and Dangerous Dan. Kevin Lachmanski is giving it his all, chasing down David Zahn in P2.
We'll have to wait to see if Kevin can use the draft to his advantage, or if the lack of downforce will hinder his progress.
Braking development. Now I may be wrong here, but I'm not sure that's the racing line. This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Kevin Lachmanski is chasing David Zahn in P2.
Don't forget the role of aerodynamics. Lachmanski should use slipstreaming to his advantage and close the gap to Zahn.
Kevin Lachmanski is in the flow, putting in his best lap so far.
I'm curious, Ada, can you tell us about any pre-race rituals you had when you were racing?
Of course, Hal. Before every race, I would listen to a specific playlist of songs to help me get in the zone. I also had a lucky pair of socks that I would wear during races. It may sound silly, but those little rituals helped me feel prepared and focused.
Gregory Myers is on a mission, chasing Dangerous Dan, who's currently got a comfortable lead. Look at that, Kevin Lachmanski is hot on the tail of David Zahn.
Lachmanski is really pushing the limits. He's riding the curbs and hustling that ASRL T70 MkII Spyder like a boss.
Good news for Kevin Lachmanski, the gap to David Zahn has decreased. It's now down to 0.4 seconds.
This is where the pressure really starts to build. A driver that stays calm and focused is more likely to come out on top.
We often hear drivers complaining about tire graining. Ada, can you explain what that means and how it affects car handling?
Graining occurs when small rubber particles roll up on the tire's surface, reducing grip and negatively affecting handling. It usually happens when the tires are not in their optimal temperature window or when a driver is pushing too hard on a cold or overworked tire.
The pressure is on as Gregory Myers works on catching up to Dangerous Dan.
It's all about choosing the right moments to push and when to conserve energy, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
Oh, this is getting intense. Kevin Lekmansky is just behind David Zahn.
They say rubbing is racing, but if Kevin gets too close, they might end up trading carbon fiber souvenirs instead of positions.
Stop the press. Great driving from Kevin Lekmansky, who has just gained a place and moved up to second.
You can't argue with results like that. Kevin is really making his mark on this race.
The adrenaline is pumping as David Zahn gets within striking distance of Kevin Lekmansky in their race for second.
It seems like David Zahn is pushing hard, currently on track to record his best lap so far this race.
An impressive showing from David Zahn, who has gained positions and left Kevin Lekmansky in the dust.
Absolutely. David is showing great pace and determination, but he can't get too confident. There are still plenty of challenges ahead.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed.
I would not be surprised to see him get this pass completed soon.
The gap between Gregory Myers and Dangerous Dan is growing. It's now up to 0.7 seconds. Stefano Amadei is looking for a way to close that gap to Jake Feemster. The pressure is on as Gregory Myers tries to catch up to Dangerous Dan.
Sometimes you have to take risks to win, but pushing the car too hard can be a costly mistake. Myers needs to be careful not to overdo it.
The gap between Gregory Myers and Dangerous Dan is widening. It's now up to 0.5 seconds.
Myers needs to focus and keep pushing, even when things aren't going his way. If he can close the gap down, he may be able to bring the fight to Dangerous Dan.
Gregory Myers is trying his best to catch Dangerous Dan. While Dangerous Dan is not under immediate threat from Gregory Myers, he can still benefit from staying focused. Any slip-up could lose him the position. This is where the race gets really interesting. Gregory Myers is closing in on Dangerous Dan. It seems like Gregory Myers has got the bit between his teeth, improving on Dangerous Dan's lap time there.
We will have to see if Dangerous Dan has got any answers for that.
Gregory Myers is staying focused while chasing Dangerous Dan in P7.
Myers needs to focus to make up that gap to Dangerous Dan.
The delta is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Stefano Amadei needs to find a way to close the gap.
Anything can happen in racing, and we've seen Stefano pull off some impressive moves before. I'm excited to see if he can do it again.
These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving.
Gregory Myers appears to be losing ground on Dangerous Dan. He'll need to pick up the pace a bit heading into Ravazza to get a good exit and gain some ground.
Hey, Ada, you've had your fair share of races with little action. How did you handle the situation back in your racing days?
Well, Hal, patience is key in such scenarios. You need to stay focused and be ready to seize any opportunity that comes your way. It's like a game of chess at 200 miles per hour.
This is a thrilling battle as Gregory Myers edges closer to Dangerous Dan in their fight for P7.
One important aspect here is choosing the right braking points. Greg needs to be precise to avoid overshooting and losing valuable time.
The action is heating up here as Dangerous Dan is in 7th, defending from Gregory Myers, who is only 0.3 seconds away. A commanding performance from Dangerous Dan, who has increased his lead over Gregory Myers, putting him firmly in his rear-view mirrors.
It's clear that Dangerous Dan is dominating right now. He's making it very difficult for Greg to catch up.
Looks like Gregory Myers is really hitting those curbs aggressively, which can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer.
Myers is looking to close the 0.4 second gap and make a pass.
That's not a small gap, but Crow has what it takes to challenge for the position.
Absolutely. Crow in 6th will need to be patient and work carefully to reduce that gap without overdriving it, as he can't afford to take unnecessary risks and that might lead to an off or damaging their car.
It's not looking good for Crow, who is still behind Stefano Amadei and the gap is increasing.
It's not over yet, but Crow needs to get a move on if they want to catch up to Stefano.
The gap between Gregory Myers and Dangerous Dan is razor thin as they vie for 7th in this nail-biting contest. Hold on a moment. Hold your breath, folks. Gregory Myers is sandwiched between two relentless competitors, 0.1 seconds behind and Dangerous Dan 0.2 seconds ahead. They're fighting tooth and nail for every position.
You're absolutely right, Hal. The gaps to the cars ahead and behind act as a measuring stick for Myers' performance. He'll have to keep a close eye on those gaps to stay in control of his race. Should things go south between Myers and Dangerous Dan, we might witness a high-speed game of bumper cars, but trust me, it's way less fun with real race cars.
Things are heating up as Dangerous Dan tries to close the gap to Gregory Myers.
The gap between them is just over 0.5 seconds, which can feel like miles if you're trailing and not catching up.
The gap between David Zahn and Kevin Lekmansky is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from David to even allow Kevin to get a look in.
Lekmansky certainly isn't going to be close enough to mount any kind of challenge soon unless it's down to a mistake from Zahn.
And there it is. Malero has completed the race in first place, setting a blistering pace that none of the other drivers could match.
And that's why Malero is one of the best in the business. A dominant display of driving from start to finish, leaving the rest of the pack in the dust.
As we come into the final moments of this epic race, Malero is in the lead.
It takes a special kind of driver to perform under pressure like this. Malero has certainly risen to the occasion.
David Zahn never gave up. He drove with heart and determination, ultimately securing a well-deserved second-place finish.
Brilliant. Dave showed great skill and determination to take second place.
That was an outstanding performance from Kevin Lekmansky. He fought hard and took the final spot on the podium. In 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, it's Jake Feemster, Stefano Amadei, Crow, and Gregory Myers. Dangerous Dan brings home 8th. It's a beautifully calm day here at Imola 1972, as we're getting ready to kick things off. Dangerous Dan will be looking to convert his pole position into a win.
He can't get cocky. This is ASRL, and anything can happen.
Gregory Myers is starting this race on the front row.
He will have to be smart about his moves. He must not burn out too early.
At third, we have the one and only Crow.
Let's see what Crow can do.
Stefano Amadei lines up in fourth place as the engines rev and the race begins.
Stefano will be expecting to bring home solid points.
Jake Feemster is going to be starting from fifth.
Like many others, Feemster is starting the race on the Standards tire compound.
Kevin Lachmansky will look to make a splash from the sixth position on the starting grid.
Starting from here, Lachmansky may already have expectations of a podium finish.
Sitting in seventh is David Zahn.
Malero is lining up eighth.
And we have lift off. The race is now underway. This first sector will test the driver's skills and their ability to stay focused.
With adrenaline running high, some drivers may take unnecessary risks. Staying patient and knowing when to make a move is essential for a strong start.
I think passing is going to be difficult today here at Imola 1972, so it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers get on. Jake Feemster is tearing up the track, making up positions left and right.
They say fortune favors the bold, and Feemster is certainly proving that with this explosive start.
Having started in P3, Crow will be hoping for a good result in this race.
It all comes down to this how, where the rubber meets the road. There's no more time for talk, no more practice. The teams have done all they can, now it comes down to Crow, to bring it home.
Settling into a rhythm is going to be crucial here.
The drivers will be jostling for the best position how. Some of them may not make it to the second lap in one piece.
Races are often more about maintaining consistency than having outright pace, but it doesn't hurt to have a little good luck every now and then.
I for one am really excited how. The rivalry between Lachmansky and Zahn has been building before the race, and this is where scores are settled.
This is going to be one hell of a race, I can already feel it.
Every corner, every lap, and every race is a chance for these drivers to hone their abilities and improve their skills.
As we watch the drivers fight it out in the first lap, I can already feel that this is going to be an epic race.
Dangerous Dan is on a mission, chasing Gregory Myers, who's desperately trying to stay ahead.
The gap is 0.4 seconds now. Dangerous Dan is going to have to work a bit harder to close that gap with Myers.
The battle for P4 is heating up as Stefano Amadei tries to catch Dangerous Dan in P4. It's a solid performance from Stefano Amadei at the moment. He's holding his position and not getting too caught up in battles around him.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Stefano just needs to bide his time and wait for the right opportunity.
Crow is giving it his all chasing down Jake Feimster in P1.
We'll have to wait to see if Crow can get into drafting range.
The intensity is off the charts as Stefano Amadei hounds Dangerous Dan, both drivers pushing themselves to the absolute limit.
If Stefano pushes too hard, he might end up taking the scenic route, and nobody's got time for sightseeing during a race.
This is what high-octane racing looks like. Malero is breathing down the neck of Stefano Amadei, not giving him any room to relax.
If Malero isn't careful, he might end up turning this high-speed chase into a synchronized spinning routine, and trust me, that's not a crowd pleaser.
Stop the press. Fantastic move from Kevin Lachmansky, who has just gained a position. Kevin Lachmansky is running 7th, and trying to catch Malero.
A great moment for Kevin Lachmansky, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings.
Hold on a moment. I don't think that's the fastest way around Imola 1972.
Dangerous Dan is not going to be happy about that.
It's a thrilling pursuit as David Zahn is right behind Kevin Lachmansky, keeping the pressure on for 5th place.
It's a battle of nerves now. Dave and Kevin are both pushing hard, but need to avoid mistakes that might cost them time or positions.
It looks like Kevin Lachmansky is pulling away from David Zahn. The gap is continuing to grow as they head through Tosa.
Crow is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift.
It's not going to plan for Crow, who is trailing behind Jake Feimster and the gap is widening. He may not have an answer for this right now.
This is a tough situation for Crow. He'll need to find a way to pick up some speed and close that gap.
Every move counts now as David Zahn works to reel in Kevin Lachmansky and overtake for P5.
It's certainly not going to plan for David Zahn right now, who is struggling to keep up with Kevin Lachmansky.
Zahn needs to get it together to make a dent in that gap.
This is wheel-to-wheel racing at its finest. The drivers are practically glued together as they fight for every inch of track. It's a battle you don't want to miss.
Hold on a moment, what a move. Stefano Amadei has moved up to 1st.
That's what we like to see. Stefano is really showing his class today.
In racing, anything can, and usually does, happen, especially in such an epic showdown.
If things go wrong between Kevin and Stefano, they could be exchanging more than just paint, like maybe a strongly worded post-race chat.
Kevin Lachmansky could be on a charge here. Ada, he's just put in a quicker lap than Stefano Amadei. Braking alert. It's looking good for Kevin Lachmansky, who has gained a place after passing Stefano Amadei.
Go, 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 that's what we want to see. The question now is, can Stefano respond to that and pick up the pace? I'm not so sure.
Oh, this is getting intense. Stefano Amadei is just a few car lengths behind Kevin Lachmansky.
It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Stefano needs to stay patient and wait for Lachmansky to make a mistake.
The race is really heating up. David Zahn is hunting down Stefano Amadei with everything he's got. David Zahn is not able to keep his pace consistent, and is currently 0.5 seconds down.
Dave needs to regroup and refocus and knock it up a notch.
We're starting to see who really has the pace now in this race as David Zahn is starting to climb all over the back of Stefano Amadei. Any closer and he may need to pop the boot. A tough moment for Stefano Amadei, who has just lost a place, now in 6th.
Yes, but there's still plenty of race left. Stefano needs to stay calm and focused, and make his move when the time is right.
Anyone who says that ASRL is not the best racing club on the planet is clearly insane. The quality of driving we're seeing out there on the track is absolutely phenomenal.
I couldn't agree more. It's like these drivers were born to race. They're weaving in and out of traffic, taking corners at unbelievable speeds, and making it all look effortless. It's clear that they've put in the time and effort to hone their skills.
The pursuit is on. Malero is working on that gap to Stefano Amadei, determined to claim P6. Malero is pushing hard and has reduced the gap to Stefano Amadei to 0.5 seconds. This is where the race gets really interesting. Kevin Lachmansky is closing in on Gregory Myers.
Kevin Lachmansky is on a charge. His split time shows he's upped his pace. Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed.
The gap between them is just over 0.5 seconds. Can Malero close that gap and get back in range? I can't see it happening at this point.
It's game on now. Malero has closed the gap to Stefano Amadei. It's now down to 0.4 seconds.
The track conditions are looking good here today. The drivers will be able to push the cars to the limit, and it's going to make for some exciting racing.
Oh, this is getting intense. Kevin Lachmansky needs to keep Gregory Myers in his sights.
You can see that car bouncing around as it rides the curbs. It's a risky move that could end in disaster.
It looks like Kevin Lachmansky is making a move. The gap to Gregory Myers is now down to 0.5 seconds. The pressure is on as David Zahn works on catching up to Kevin Lachmansky. The gap between David Zahn and Kevin Lachmansky is growing. It's now up to 0.8 seconds. It's an intense battle for position as Kevin Lachmansky tries to outmaneuver Gregory Myers. This is edge of your seat racing. Breaking update. It's a tale of two drivers right now, with Kevin Lachmansky gaining places and Gregory Myers losing them. The pursuit is on. Gregory Myers is closing the gap on Kevin Lachmansky, determined to claim P3.
These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving.
It's a game of strategy now as Dave hunts down Myers.
Yes, it's all about choosing the right moments to push and when to conserve energy, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
The gap between David Zahn and Gregory Myers is getting smaller.
That's a great effort from David. He'll need to keep up the pressure and see if he can make a move.
The tension is building as Stefano Amadei trails behind David Zahn. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting.
Superb driving from Stefano Amadei, who with that overtake has gained a position in the race.
Huge shout out to the admins at ASRL for making this all possible. Without their hard work and dedication, we wouldn't be able to witness this incredible event.
That's right, Hal, and the excitement is electric. I can feel it in my circuits. I mean, this is the kind of race that people will be talking about in the bar. We're witnessing history in the making.
Gregory Myers is looking for a way to close that gap to Stefano Amadei. Gregory Myers is trying his best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Stefano Amadei at the moment.
He needs to pick up the pace for sure, but that's not always a real possibility.
Stefano Amadei is trying his best to catch David Zahn.
Can Stefano close that 0.8 second gap and get back in range? I can't see it happening at this point.
It's not looking good for Stefano Amadei, who is still behind David Zahn, and the gap is increasing. So, Ada, considering the high speeds and split-second decision-making involved in racing, what's the impact of even a minor lapse in concentration?
A minor lapse in concentration can have significant consequences, Hal. It could lead to an off-track excursion, a loss of position, or even a collision. That's why it's crucial for drivers to stay focused and alert throughout the race.
It's looking good for Gregory Myers, sitting in 6th.
Looking at the lap times, Gregory Myers is not currently on pace with Malero. Maybe he'll get a chance to see where to make up some time. Things are heating up as Stefano Amadei tries to close the gap to David Zahn.
Sometimes you have to take risks to win, but pushing the car too hard can be a costly mistake. Stefano needs to be careful not to overdo it.
Good news for Stefano Amadei, the gap to David Zahn has decreased. It's now down to 0.5 seconds.
This is where the race gets really exciting. Both drivers will be pushing to the limit to gain the advantage.
Hold that thought. Looks like that's a mistake from Malero. This could be costly. Stefano Amadei is staying focused while chasing David Zahn in P4. Stefano Amadei has just managed to set his fastest lap of the race so far with a lap time of 1 minute.
The more laps they do, the faster these guys get. This should make for some great racing, Hal.
Stefano Amadei is giving it his all chasing down David Zahn in P4. Gregory Myers is pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap to Stefano Amadei. There's 14 minutes left in this session to make that happen. The gap between Gregory Myers and Stefano Amadei is widening. It's now up to 3.4 seconds.
This is not ideal for Greg, but there's still time to turn this around. He'll need to focus and not let that gap get any bigger.
This is where the race gets really interesting. Stefano Amadei is closing in on David Zahn.
Stefano Amadei has got his head down now, working those exits and apexes and setting his best lap time so far with a 1 minute.
Things are heating up now, Hal, and it'll be interesting to see if he can improve further on that time.
Things are going according to plan for Jake Feemster, who is currently first.
Some great driving from Jake Feemster, who has increased his lead over Crow and is starting to put some distance between them.
It's really looking like Feemster is going to be tough to pass today. He's driving with real confidence and authority.
The drivers are showing their mettle today. It's a privilege to witness their skill on this challenging track.
The stakes have never been higher. This is a battle of skill and nerves.
That's right. These drivers are really pushing themselves to the limit, and it's incredible to see the level of focus and determination they're bringing to the track.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of courage to compete at this level, and these drivers have it in spades. Let's hope they can keep it up and give us a race to remember.
Stefano Amadei has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with David Zahn. I expect his only hope at this point is that David makes an error. Braking development. That won't be ideal for David Zahn.
It's not over until the checkered flag drops, and it's important to maintain concentration until you've made it to the finish line.
It doesn't seem like things are going to plan for David Zahn as there is a big gap ahead.
Every race adds to a driver's experience, both good and bad. It just highlights that David is going to have to get more serious with practice to not get outclassed on the circuit.
Well, it doesn't look like Crow is going to be much of a threat to anyone soon, let alone Jake Feemster.
Crow certainly isn't going to be close enough to mount any kind of challenge soon unless it's down to a mistake from Jake.
Crow has just put in a faster lap than Jake Feemster, so that's going to give him something to worry about.
Tactics are clearly going to play an important part in this race.
Drivers are gonna need to look after their tires and will want to keep something in them for the crucial latter stages, as their tires wear and fuel levels deplete in the handling changes.
And don't forget the track grip increases as more rubber gets laid down.
Indeed, the conditions are constantly changing and the drivers need to adapt, otherwise it can cost crucial time and jeopardize their position.
The battle for P4 is heating up as David Zahn tries to catch Stefano Amadei in P4.
He's got his work cut out for him, that's for sure.
It looks like Gregory Myers is pushing hard to catch up to David Zahn. The pressure is on as David Zahn tries to catch up to Stefano Amadei. Stop the press. Great driving from David Zahn, who has just gained a place and moved up to 4th. This is a thrilling battle as Stefano Amadei edges closer to David Zahn in their fight for P4.
Stefano needs to focus to have a chance at getting past Zahn.
Stefano Amadei is pushing hard and has reduced the gap to David Zahn to 0.2 seconds.
He'll be looking for a mistake to pounce on.
Stefano Amadei is on a mission, chasing David Zahn, who's desperately trying to stay ahead.
It's a fine line between pushing the car to its limits and losing control. Stefano is really walking that fine line.
The gap between David Zahn and Stefano Amadei is not insurmountable, but it's going to take a mistake from David Zahn to bring Stefano Amadei into play. Look at that, Stefano Amadei is hot on the tail of David Zahn. It looks like we might get a battle between Stefano Amadei and David Zahn. The crowd is on the edge of their seats as Crow in second chases after Jake Feemster.
It's going to be tough for Crow, as Feemster seems to have found his rhythm.
It looks like Crow is making a move. The gap to Jake Feemster is now down to 1.2 seconds.
Exactly what Crow needed. He can't afford to lose any more ground to Jake.
If everything goes as planned, this is going to be a race for the ages.
The drivers are executing their strategies to perfection, making the most of every opportunity. This is what top-level racing is all about.
Stefano Amadei is placed 5th at the moment. He can't hold on. Stefano Amadei is losing time to Gregory Myers. The pursuit is on. Crow is working on that gap to Jake Feemster, determined to claim P1. It's game on now. Crow has closed the gap to Jake Feemster. It's now down to 0.8 seconds. A solid performance from Stefano Amadei, who is holding down 5th. Breaking news, folks. Heartbreak for Stefano Amadei, as they slip down the field.
That's got to be frustrating. But Stefano is a skilled driver, and he's got what it takes to battle back up the field.
Absolutely, and he'll need to keep driving with determination to stay in that position.
The battle for P1 is heating up as Crow tries to catch Jake Feemster in P1. The gap between Crow and Jake Feemster is getting smaller. The crowd is on its feet as Crow chases down Jake Feemster through Tamburello.
This is what separates the good from the great, the ability to stay focused and perform under pressure.
It's all about consistency for Gregory Myers, who is currently 5th. Things are heating up as Crow tries to close the gap to Jake Feemster. Good news for Crow, the gap to Jake Feemster has decreased. It's now down to 0.2 seconds. Malero is running 6th, and trying to keep up with Gregory Myers.
It seems like Malero is pushing hard, currently on track to record his best lap so far this race.
Malero appears to be pushing, hopefully he can keep it together.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Crow is chasing Jake Feemster in P1.
The racing is getting tight between Crow and Jake as they battle for P1.
No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
It's like Jake Feemster has saved all his energy for this final stretch.
Braking development. Look at this Ada, what a shame for Jake Feemster. He's lost P1 to Kevin Lekmansky, and that's got to hurt.
He's been focusing so hard on maintaining his position, and now he's slipped back in the field. Meanwhile, Lekmansky has been making some great moves and is now on the charge. Jake is not leaving anything on the table.
The leader has just finished the race. A fantastic result for Kevin Lekmansky.
You can see the sheer determination on Lekmansky's face as that becomes a win for the history books. That's the mark of a true champion, folks.
Impressive second-place finish for Jake Feemster.
Impressive result, he can be proud of that performance, which landed him on the second podium spot.
Well done to Crow for securing 3rd place on the podium. Taking 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th is David Zahn, Gregory Myers, Malero, and Stefano Amadei.